welcome to the BMI podcast.
Welcome, guys.
So today we're going to jump into property and buying a home.
Mm-hmm.
I actually struggled because I have no idea what questions to ask.
Yep.
So I was coming in completely blank.
Yep.
So really, I guess it's more just inquisitive.
Which could be kind of good as well.
Yeah, 100%. I thought so. We can kind of get a bit of a gauge on, just I guess general open conversation. And I thought a good place to start would obviously be, now we've touched on your background in property and real estate before in other episodes, but a bit of a refresh. And so I guess your journey to date, just what's been your journey to date with regards to property and home buying? Because it's quite extensive already.
Yeah. So started when I was 20 years old, pretty much. I started at I think 18, 19 when I decided I wanted to buy a home. I was working with a mate of mine, and he already had bought his place, and he bought his place when he was 18 years old. You know, nothing flash or anything like that, but doesn't matter when you're like getting into the housing market, and we'll probably get to that later on, like when I give you guys my sort of story and how real estate can lead to long-term investments and stuff like and things like that. So yeah, I started around 19, meeting working with a mate, just seeing that and just going, oh shit, you know, I maybe I should look into doing that, because I didn't really know what I was up to. I was young. I sort of, you know, always had high goals, but actually didn't really pick anything. You know, I didn't want to go to uni, those sort of things. So I just decided to go to work and then save for a house. And so bought my first place when I was 20, and it was just a small home out in Ngaruahia. And then that gave me the bug, realistically. It also, because I had such a great experience, and which we've talked about in About Me in the podcast that I've done about me, it made me want to get into real estate and, you know, help other people get into their first home as well, and other types of buyers. But that was my main why for getting into real estate. Then I met my business partner through real estate. Just met him through open homes and just walking in and just chatting to him. We joined forces and we decided to property develop. And so because I had a house, I've grown up with construction around me through my father, who I got to subcontract for my development company. So he and my business partner was a civil engineer. We joined forces and did property development. So we went and bought land, subdivided that, and then built duplexes on them, 3 duplexes and standalone house. Done a few spec build homes as well, just on their own home, sections for other clients. And then that went well. We did pretty well, and my business partner decided he wanted to sort of move overseas and retire with his wife and his daughter. It's quite stressful. Like, property development it's not for the faint-hearted, I always sort of say. And, you know, you got to be ready to not get paid for 3 years. A lot of people, like, it was kind of easy for me to transition because in real estate you don't get paid often either.
It's all based on,
so I just went from getting paid once a month to, or once every 2 months to once every buy year. And so yeah, moved to that. And then after that, like, because, you know, you got to have high equity to do property development, it was hard for me to, after we split, to use my equity to go and develop again. Like, we sort of put our eggs in one basket, and it's hard to do it, especially because the laws changed around the LVRs for so LVRs are loan to value ratios.
What does that mean?
So it's basically how much equity you have in your properties or cash in relation to the development total costs. So let's say your LVR today, I think, is maybe 35%. If you're a first-time developer, you probably won't be actually getting that. You'll probably be getting closer to 50-50, which is what we had to do
is this
the first
only
time.
For development process, not for people that are buying?
So
like,
people that are buying, so for first-home buyers, I think it's 20% right now. And then for rental or investment properties, I think that's at 35%, which is actually good now, because when I bought this third property, which I'll get to, that was at 40% LVR for an investment property. So like that's changed now. I think it's gone down to 30, or it's happening very soon. So its market might be changing very shortly, because investors have got more incentive and they can use more of their equity, even though values have gone down. That's sort of how it works. Like if you can only use what's there, but then it also depends on what the Reserve Bank rules are, whether you can go and borrow.
And so that's equity based on either cash that you've got or other investments that you've got as well.
So if your house is worth 800,000, or we should do around worth 1 million, and then you've only got a $600,000 mortgage on it, you have 400 grand equity. And then usually if you go and get an investment property, they'll let you use 80% of that 400 grand equity for an investment property.
Right, that makes sense.
Yeah. It might have changed. Like it's been a while, and they're always changing, but they're always around those parameters. Maybe certain circumstances as well. Like if it's a new build, it might be 80%, and then maybe if it's an existing, it might be 60% of that equity you're allowed to use.
Yep.
They have small little rules. Every bank's different as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So sorry, where was I?
Third property.
So and then after me and my business partner parted ways, I had to build up my equity, so paying down the loan, and then also building up some cash reserves to invest in the next property. So and I ended up buying a third property right next to the university here in Hamilton, and to build 5 units on that there. 2 4-bedroom, 4 baths, no garage, and then the back 3 units are 3-bedroom, 3 bath, single car garage for all of those there. And so bought that there for my next investment, and then also had to have a bit of cash there to get resource consent and land use consent on those there. So I've already invested. So bought the land. I think I bought it for 915, maybe 920. I can't remember the exact one. $920,000, which is quite a lot, because it was pretty much just for the land, because the land is what I'm paying for, so I can be able to build the units on that.
Yeah.
And then I put almost maybe like 80 to 100 grand of my own cash into getting consents, engineering plans, site plans, survey plans, and stuff like that. So, and architectural draft drawings. So yeah, bit of a process for that.
And so that's still in development currently?
Yeah, so I've got my resource consents. They're already in place. I'm just waiting for possibly by the end of the year, or maybe start of next year, to start pre-selling them and start the development. Just waiting for a bit more sure environment on the interest rates, because I will have to go and borrow close to $3 million for the construction costs on that.
Yep. So
all in $3 million, I think it was, and the interest rates that they're at right now, if you go over 6 months over the project, it could cost you almost 100 grand.
Yeah.
Because if you're going off of 8 or 9% interest, then off of that, it's literally just like 100 grand or something like that.
Yeah.
So
I'll bring it back to kind of like that first home buyer, because invested interest in that person.
Yep.
Run us through the process. So kind of like,
so do I. My units,
helping those people.
Yeah, trying to.
Yeah,
at least.
With as you're kind of going through and buying that first home, what's that process look like? And I guess, has that process changed much since when you were buying your first property?
Definitely. It's been like this. How old am I? So it's almost 12 years ago.
31.
Yep. That's it, bro. 32 this year. Crazy.
Oh.
Only just turned 31, all right?
Yeah.
Well, not really. We're almost.
No, we'll just say just.
Yeah. So the times have changed. Like when I first bought my place, it was like 5% deposit. Yep. So like that's a huge thing. And I was very young. I actually didn't even have much of an income. I actually bought a really, really cheap property out in Ngurumotu as my first property, and maybe that's a good sort of point for people that are listening to know that it's not really about what you're wanting to buy at first. Like, it's not going to be your end dream home for a first home buyer. It's very hard right now because you've got a lot of people that are investors, they want to invest as well. So you're up against investors that have equity. You're up against people like me, essentially. And we also understand the game. We're not, I guess, we're not shy, or we're not fearful like some first home buyers are a bit like, oh, do I jump, or like, so then they don't go in at the right amount. And then us who have a few properties, we know, oh, if something goes wrong, we'll just weather the storm and hold on to it. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's a tangible asset that you can hold on to, versus, like, I get it. It's quite nerve wracking for the first home buyers. I feel like a lot of first home buyers get caught up with, like, trying to find the perfect property for them. Like, I would say, like, because when I was working in real estate, I spent maybe like 3 or 4 months with some people, and they're still looking, and and they hadn't even put an offer on a property. I was just like, your expectations are too high. And I think it's even worse now than when I was in real estate, 6-7 years ago, that compared to now, like, it's just really hard. Like, I talked to Nicole, who's a mate of ours that is a mortgage broker, and she's just saying that we've got first home buyers still going into multiple offer situations, which is really hard for them, because when you're up against competition, like, you don't know who your competition is, you don't know what offer they're putting on. Like, it's very hard for you to make the judgment, and then only really a real estate agent can give you that sort of advice, or a listing agent, but they still work for the vendor, if you know what I mean. The vendor pays the commission, so the person selling their house is the vendor.
We'll take it back a step. So, like, if we've got different, so once you've kind of got your deposit and pre-approved for a certain amount, you've kind of found a certain property that you like.
Sorry, you made a really good point. So I missed one right there. My first step would be to go to a mortgage broker. So that's 100% what I do. Go see how much you can borrow. Go get a pre-approval. Go to them with all your finances. And it's good as well because it's free. So you go to a mortgage broker, they work for you, and then they also work for the bank, but realistically their job is to get your deal across the line. Whereas you go to a bank, you're just another sort of number, and then also they go to every other bank and offer your business to them. So, like, it works in your benefit. You get better interest rates from them. You then actually go into the bank, which is pretty stupid, like weird to me. Like, when I was at Westpac, when I first bought my property, I didn't get a better rate because I went directly to them. And that was the last time I did that, because I looked at my interest rate compared to my mates that were buying at the time, and I was like 1% more than them, and like, so that's a huge thing is for first home buyers. And even if you're not even near buying, it's a good little way to have a bit of accountability. We talk about it quite a lot, just with fitness and stuff like that, going to you for a check-in. It's the same for going to a mortgage broker. All right, let's see where your body fat percentage is at. And let's see where we want to get you. It's the same thing with your finances. Let's see where you're at. And it's also a good way to go, okay, now we have a set goal, because the mortgage brokers will normally have, all right, XYZ's spending too much here. Like, do you need that? Or what is that? Sweet. For the last 3 months, because what you have to do is when you go to submit for a pre-approval, they only need your last 3 months statements and 3 months pay slips. So they'll go, all right, you're still 6 months, maybe 12 months off of saving for your deposit. Keep your Kiwi Saver going, or things along like that, or side savings. Keep saving, and then your last 3 months, X those payments or X those expenses, so that your situation presents better. And you do that for 3 months. Like, I had to do that when I had to buy the third property, is because I pulled my parents' debt in, what we talked about previously, pulled that in, and then had to do another 3 months because then I went to go buy that third property because they couldn't have that debt there. And so I had to wait another 3 months before I could go and get the new loan for a new property. So it's just how it works. And, like, because they just want to see stability. And I understand from the bank's point of view, but big first thing to do is mortgage broker.
And so once we've gone through there and you're kind of getting to that process, it sounds like now, because there are a lot more people in the market to buy, you've got a shift towards, what did you call it? Multiple
multiple offer situations.
offers, yep.
So like that's not every property.
yeah.
Like you could be. It's hard because you haven't got the experience. So like for me, I would go and look at 10 properties right now, and I would just like individually not throw 10 offers at them all at once, because by law here in New Zealand, if they accept them, you have to do your best to fiducially uphold your end of the offer.
Yeah.
So you would have to go offer, wait until it gets rejected, go to the next one, offer, like if that's, or negotiate with them one by one.
Yep.
But yeah. So what were you saying? Like, is that the situation that it's at right now? Or?
I guess that from what you're saying, it sounds to me anyway like there's a more of a shift towards that being the kind of buyer's market currently versus necessarily going in with either a single offer, or being a single offer, or potentially even auction.
Yeah. So a lot more properties are going to auction now,
Right.
Which means it's tilting towards a seller's market.
Yep.
And I think right now would be a really good time to try and negotiate. You're gonna be up against competition now. Like, just I'm talking directly to the, getting the word from the horse's mouth from an actual mortgage broker, and she's super busy, like really busy, doing deals, heaps of deals, and that shows. And I've talked to another one as well, and exact same thing for him, and that it shows that there is a lot more. It's a stimulated market now compared. They were sort of clutching at straws versus shit. I'm doing deals like 3 or 4 deals a week, which is typical signs. And then you also, the way that I use to follow the market is I just follow the local real estate firms listings, and if they're going predominantly in auction, it tends to be more of a tougher market, like for
People to buy.
Yeah, right. Because they're willing to wait for 3 weeks instead of a lot. Like when it's a buyer's market, they'll put a price on it, so like you have an idea. Whereas if there's a lot of competition, they don't put the price on it, and then they want you to bid against each other.
So I mean, we talk about like buyers and sellers markets. How do you kind of go about that? If you're a buyer in a seller's market, would you prefer to sit on the fence? Like what does that look like?
So any of those markets, if you can buy, and like intelligently, don't just buy, because there's some people that get FOMO as well, and I wouldn't advise, like, no, it's true, like because of all the hype. And it's the same with Bitcoin and
Which is
stocks.
how auction works in general, right?
Yeah.
The whole purpose of auctioning.
That's the whole purpose of it, is just, you pin people against each other. Well, like you might have like 2 couples that absolutely love the property, and like and that's the real estate agent's job, it's his fiduciary duty to the owner of that property to try and get as much money for it. Like that's his job, and like it's sort of, I would say just get into the market. Wouldn't be stressing about that. I'd figure out, all right, what can I borrow? Like go to the mortgage broker. And what I tend to say to clients of mine, I would say, so you got your pre-approval, start here then. Go below. Don't, unless it's pitch perfect, the money makes sense. If you can rent a few rooms out to help you offset a bit of the expenses, but just get in the market. But I wouldn't go max leveraging, just because you need to give yourself a little buffer. We're kind of at that moment right now. We're in that place that I would advise people to be aware of. Like, it's literally what I've told all of our mates and stuff, like, be careful, because this shit that's happening right now is 7-8% interest rates. It's a lot different to 2.5%, Like, we've talked to a few of our mates, and a lot of these people are hurting because they're quite low equity, which is loan to value ratio. And then it's like, boom, that big chunk, you're adding on $300-400 to your weekly expenses.
Yeah, and I guess it's actually more about managing your expectation. At that point, especially if you know 100%. That it ends up being a buyer's market, a seller's market. Not to deter people away from buying, but you actually have to manage your expectation around that. Because it's going to be different. Yeah.
And that's where the agent, like a buyer's agent, would come in and like try to, like, because it's an emotional roller coaster, first home buyers and stuff like the stuff that they're going through is, it's new to them. It's tough. It's also they're learning new things. Oh shit, like, oh, I like this property, because it becomes weird. They go through like these growing pains. Like they go, no, like, no, that's not worth that much, and they tell me how much it's worth or something like that, or they tell others, oh yeah, and then they'll get their parents involved, and then you got you got to like convince 6 different people on a house. Like, good luck. Like, it's hard enough getting 2 people, like, let alone 1 as well. Like, it's really hard. And then, like you're saying, that expectation is just too high in a seller's market. I would say as well, like, try to just focus on the numbers. Talk to your broker, to your agent. Don't focus on social media. Like, their job is to scare you. Like, I've sort of, everything about the media is designed to build fear inside of you, is how I sort of see it. Social media, everything is or fear or lust or gluttony, or, you know, like it's emotion,
actually,
you know.
I was going to save this one more for the end, but it's probably a good place to kind of bring it in now. And I mean, you hear about that, right? Like there's a housing crisis, and it's always thrown by that word, it's crisis, or there's something inherently wrong there. And be aware.
Negative, like negatively geared, or like or mortgagee sales, and they don't even put the percentages on it, because I read those things, like, because I follow the market. I see those titles, then I read in, and it's just like, oh, it's only 3% mortgagee sales or something like that.
Like, what does that actually even mean to begin with? Like, like I hear that there's a housing crisis.
Yeah,
like, I don't know what the fuck that means. Like, what does that even mean?
Yeah, so that's the thing. Like, it could mean 3 or 4 different. It could mean good things as well. Housing crisis for a seller. Housing crisis means there's a shortage of houses, so then I'm going to get more for my house. Or there's a shortage of houses. There's a housing crisis. You have to pay more for my house because you're a buyer. Like, do you get what I mean? Like, you can swing it any way you want, and that's why I try to, like, block them out. And also, I kind of try to, if I have a good enough relationship with the client, I would kind of go, keep your family out of it too. You all got to live in this house, not them. You know, like, there's that whole part of things. Like, you got so many things to navigate to get in your first house, and then you're not only that, if
bringing
you're a
in
couple,
other people's opinions. And
yeah,
whatnot.
well, sometimes because, like, oh, mum and dad might have to help on a deposit, you know, and then that's the world we're living in right now. You know, like, something like 70% of Canadians, the best chance of buying a property or owning a property is waiting for mum and dad to die. Apparently, you know, like,
that was actually
that's crazy. You know,
that was going to be the follow on there, and it was, you know, we seem to be in a place where you hear the same people kind of say, well, then these days it's so much harder.
Yeah.
And I'm always kind of, and, you know, it'll be almost impossible to buy a home without parental support and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Bullshit.
And that's what I mean. I'm kind of like, well, I look at that and I'm like, that's all well and good, but, like, it doesn't really do anything for me. That doesn't really help, right? And so I always come back to, I guess, the stoic kind of way of thinking about things. It's like, well, what's in my control?
Yeah.
And if we hear that type of information, what should we be thinking about? Like, what are the things that are in our control that we can focus on, even if the market is, quote, set against us?
Yeah. Well, like, it's hard because, like, it's set against you, and, like, it's making you think that it's hard. Like, when it sounds arrogant or something like that, but I could buy a house. If I started at 0, I could buy a house at least in a year and a half. Like, because I would set up a plan right now, I would be able to, because I know what I have to achieve. I'd become frugal, sort of, with my expenses. I'd make.
Say, what does that process look like?
I would probably work. I'll get another job. You know, like, that's why I'd say I'm in a blessed position that I am now. I don't need to be chasing that bag for those cents. But if I had nothing and I wanted to go get a house, I would probably pick up a second job, realistically, work weekends, pick up any sort of bit of work that you can.
Because that puts you in the best position financially to, like, actually as a financial backing, or more because it actually looks better from a borrowing perspective?
Yes, so both? it's all about those 3 months of statements, and the current job, I'd look to earn more. So, like, if you would like, either get a second job or try to upskill so that you can ask for a pay rise, or go get a better job that's paying better. But it'll essentially have to come through upskilling or something like that. You know, it's not going to just fall on your lap and go, oh, you know what, today, because everyone would just, if I could just decide tomorrow to make more money, I'd make more money.
Of course.
You got to go and pick up some skills. You would have to pick up, and, like, you'd be surprised how an extra $400 a week will make, you know, as you're saving. But on not only that, it's giving you a bit, like, maybe a little chunk of money that you can go and invest in something, like go and buy like a coffee cart and renovate that and flip that, or go buy a car like that is worth more than it is, put in like $300 or $400 in it. Do you know what I mean? Like you gotta buy something that's worth $2,000 or $3,000 and then sell it for $8,000 after you put $1,000 into it. It's like you got to sort of create some sort of value, and some momentum, some value, and like build up a deposit. You'd have to probably maybe, like, I don't know if you're in a relationship or anything like that, think creatively like that. Oh, like, okay, well, I've got a partner, we've been together for a year or so. I wouldn't advise people to do it if they haven't been in a stable relationship.
Yeah.
But, it is tough out there, you're joining forces. There's no shame in it as well. Going in together on a property, there's no shame in getting help from parents. And if that is the case, you just need to, have the right incentive and make sure that the parents know, you're going to pay it back, or, you got to be on the same page sort of thing for that. And it can get difficult with those. I would probably recommend like a property share agreement and stuff like that for people in those situations. But I would pretty much work my ass off, bro, honestly. And I've always been good at saving, so I would just save. And it's hard because there's so much content out there nowadays. It's like, you can't save yourself to a millionaire. Like, I agree. Yeah, I would still be doing that. I still haven't had a year when I've made heaps of money. Like I've had mates that have made hundreds of $100,000 a year for years and years and years. Yet I'm worth more than them on paper. Like I've got multiple properties and stuff like that, and it's funny, like, because they've been making way more than me, but it's just because I have sort of laser focus on investing in myself, investing in the next development, the next project, or some way to put money into my pocket, and I'm not just throwing my money out there.
And I mean, in speaking of investment, where do you think property ranks on the spectrum of what you could be investing in?
Well, think of it this way. Here's one for the guys out there. It's obviously harder nowadays, but it will still have the same effect because it's compounding interest and compounding values, and like it's. So I bought my first property for it was something like $114,000, and it was a 5% deposit. So what's that? $6,000 or $7,000, something like that. And I haven't put a deposit down for my last two properties, and I've just put in my cash into my property development. I've only put that down and then just legal costs, and now I have 3 properties, and at very high equity as well in all of them. And I think they're around 2.3 million for those all in those properties. That's from $7,000 realistically. You got to pay the mortgage, you got to do all that,
cool.
It sounds way like glorified, but it is coming from that. Like, I wouldn't be in this position if I didn't start there. And you could put it into your own scope for yourself. You can say, yes, your level of entry is higher, but who's to say it couldn't end up the same down there if you use it wisely? Because of the people, I didn't go and like, all right, now I've got heaps of equity to sell up and go buy a nicer house. I had tried to keep it, renovate it so it's worth more, so I can buy the next one and hold on to that, rent that out as a rental investment. Do you know what I mean? Like, whereas other people would just choose that I want to live in the really nice now, whereas like I've still live in like, not an amazing area, I'm just lucky that it's a nice new house, that I built myself.
That you built yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, like, yeah, how do you think about that? I guess like the balance between, if you're going into property, should we be looking at it as that type of investment, or, what about the people that are looking at it to buy it as a home that they would like to live in, for at least the foreseeable future, and they ideally don't want to sell unless they're thinking probably 10, 20 years down the line.
Yeah.
How do you balance that, or how does that come into the decision making in terms of what you're kind of looking at, or how much you're looking at buying, if anything?
Yeah, it's really hard. Like it's hard to say because there's a lot of influence out there right now going, don't buy a house for you to live in, and blah blah blah. Like it's not a it's not an asset, it's a liability, or like there's people that say that sort of stuff, and then there's people that go like, you got to buy a house, like real estate is everything. And like, I probably sit in the middle of like, because I always treated it like an investment as well. Like I bought it and then I rented out 2 rooms to cover my costs. It's everyone's got different situations. Like I've got a family, I can't. It was like, well then like you got to figure out, well, how much do you want to own a house then? Because you might have a family. Well, go buy it. Like maybe you're pulling your income together and you can buy a property that has a little sleep unit out the back, and then you can chuck someone in the back to rent that out. Do you know what I mean? Like that's giving you an extra $200, $250 a week towards your mortgage, instead of going and buying that nicer house that suits your family perfect, but then you actually can't afford it. You know, like, or you just go, you know, like I said, it's like you maybe lower your entry level, figure out something to offset, so then you got a little bit of, because when you go to the mortgage broker, you if you rent a room out and you have a boarder that's willing to come with you, if you might be renting one right now, you could just pull your boarder with you. You get them to sign a form, and they can pull that income, and that can add to your borrowing power.
Yep.
You know?
Yep.
So like there's those sort of things that you can do to make it more presentable to the banks. You know, it's really hard. I would definitely say real estate is probably one of the best for New Zealanders to get ahead.
I was speaking to a banker about that as well, and they said the same thing. They said pretty much you've got in their line, they've seen really only 2 businesses in that way that kind of make money.
Yeah,
and it's essentially property
and business,
and IT. So it's IT and property. And I don't know if that's just a New Zealand thing, like whether or not we actually don't have as much of a.
It's because we're so far from the e-commerce, man. Like it's really hard. Like we do well on the tech because it is remote, but we don't have the consumerism here.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
But we have a shortage of housing, and it's always going to be a problem because we constantly, even the governments that are better than others still don't do enough. Like I voted for National, but I literally know that because I come from property development, they still haven't made it easier for me to go and develop. Like and we have a housing problem. Like they actually, what are they doing? They're trying to double my development contributions for this development. So I'm going to go from I just have to pay them to development 95,000 to 190 grand is what they're proposing. Obviously, I'm going to oppose that because it's ridiculous. Nothing's changed for me. They deliver for me. Yeah. I don't get better.
Is that to prevent foreign investment?
No. It's just because they're grossly miscalculated the what it costs for drainage and upgrades on sewers and everything. Then we have to pay for that. But it sucks because like I would have to just pass that on to the customer. So like I don't want cheaper rates so that. Like, because I have to make money to develop. I'm putting all of my assets online. Like, so I lose everything if something goes wrong or I do something dodgy or anything like that. You know, like I take all the risk. I should be getting compensated for my efforts, and also I have to go through all the stress, the time it takes. But yeah, like it always gets passed on to the customer, and that's sort of how the system works. And we shouldn't be like tax them or charge them more. It's like no, like it affects everyone.
It will affect everyone down the line.
Yeah, it's not good, you know.
What like I don't know. I guess there's when you're kind of in that funnel, and it inherently will affect that kind of bottom line and that bottom dollar. And I always bring it back, you know, like what can we actually inherently control? And I think the person that's trying to get into the market really can only control their own finances and manage their own expectations up until a certain point. And then once you're kind of in that market, then it's probably you're playing almost a different game, right? And I think it was Grant Cardone that I heard you mentioned it was kind of like don't live in your property. You should always rent out the property and things like that. And it's like, yeah, but you got to
take that stuff with a pinch of salt, man.
Well, yeah, and you look at like his net worth versus probably the general person that's listening to that. And it's like, come on, bro. Like, who do you think's in the position to then go and get a mortgage and go rent it out?
Because he goes, go buy 8 units instead. Is what he.
Yeah.
So what I would say to like if we got we might be having a lot of different listeners, but maybe like if we're predominantly got Kiwi listeners, you have to and like. like, because I'm caught doing that same thing as well. I go, oh, fucking easy for you.
Mm.
Like, your banks will loan you money. Like, I would be a multi-millionaire in like big time over in America because they have real like loose lending criteria.
Yeah, right.
New Zealand, like we don't play by the same rules. It's really hard. You got to follow your market that you're in, and it'll be the same. I think Aussie's pretty similar as well. Like their market's very similar. Like we've got different reserve banks. It's different to them over there. You can not even have an income and buy a house over there because if the house is positively geared, like so if it covers its mortgage, and their prices are like their entry levels are way lower as well. Like their average house price in America is like 450 or something like that, whereas ours is like it was at 800 or something like that, or like maybe 750 or something ridiculous. It might even be more than that. Like honestly, I know Hamilton's 750, but I think as a whole it's ridiculous because Auckland is like 1.1 is their median price. Like that's a bit of perspective, you know.
Yeah.
Like, and then that's what it's hard because everyone sees all that stuff on social media, but they're not actually like comparable.
No.
And that's why I thought about starting this podcast because there's a property podcast that's really good. I can't remember the owners of OP's Partners. Like they do a property podcast and they're number one in New Zealand. They're really good to follow. I don't know what their podcast's called, but it's OP's Partners, and then the owners of that have their own podcast, and then they do like their own mortgage brokerage, but they also partner like because they're partnered with developers. So then whoever comes to them, they try to sell them their buildings.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and get them into their properties, and it's a cool model, and it's good because they always get them into a model that pays itself off. Like if you go to rent it, so there's a lot of properties in Christchurch, Dunedin, Auckland as well, and you know, so those are quite good. But you kind of need to follow what's relative to you because social media is terrible. Like because we will get a lot of American content, right?
But it's a completely different game.
It's not even like you can't even. It's not even in the stratosphere of possibility for us. Like I wish I see that. I even see that stuff and I go, yeah, I wish, Grant. Like it is impossible for me to go buy 100-unit block, even if I had the cash here in New Zealand, because we have I don't know if you heard the new talks of like the debt to income ratios that they're going. So they're bringing in a new debt to income ratio. It's like so you can't. I think it's like 6 times. You can't buy anything 6 times your thing, but it's all kind of falls within the scope of lending anyway. Right. But it's a new rule as well. So now you can't.
It's basically like preventing that hyper lending. In that case,
so it's preventing more investment properties and stuff like that. So if you can't have more like investment properties, which is it's like we were talking about before. It's kind of hard as well because I know people that own 60 properties, and like. For me to get there, it's impossible now. Like because they've got that debt to value. Yeah. You know, unless you form a company or like a holding company and stuff like that. There's a whole bunch of intricate ways. It's not a loophole. It's like intricate ways because then you're not going for individual lending. It's like a business owning it or something like that. So heaps of different ways. But yeah, it's definitely hard to stay positive, like because there's social media, like we talked about the news, is like it's quite discouraging. I would say so I said talk to a mortgage broker. They'll point you in the right direction, and then just sort of like get rid of all the white noise and stuff, and just try to like laser focus, and then you'll always end up with a better result than actually not having any structure or anything like that.
How do you reconcile buying versus renting now? Like, could you make a case that renting at the moment is better?
No.
And I guess what are the pros and cons to both?
Oh, well, like real estate is going up with like it's this last 6 months to a year. It's kind of been going down because it was too overinflated in my opinion. Like the prices were too high. Right. But it's historically it's been the asset that grows with inflation. So whereas if you have savings and stuff like that, that just disappears out of nowhere. You can leave it there, and it's your 10 grand is not worth 10 grand in 5 years, whereas your $10,000 in a house, and you might even be like you're going 1/5 in with mates or something like that. That will, I can almost like guarantee, like I won't guarantee you, but like it pretty much damn near will be more than, $10,000 5 years down the line. It might be double that. It might be even smaller, but it's in historic views, it tends to be 5 to 7%, and that's the conservative rate that they've been giving real estate. It tends to be about 10 or 12%, and mine's been even way more than that. Like, and my values have dropped over 200 grand since last year, or the year when I first bought the property, a year and a half now. And I'm still like way over 10%. I'll probably be, what's that be? I don't know, 600%, something like that on the 7 grand.
And I guess it kind of pipes back to what you were saying earlier, which is essentially be sensible with your buying. Buy within your means.
That's it, yeah.
So that when times allow, or budget for the times to get tough. Like if you can have a margin of error rather than trying to buy on that threshold, you can hold in the bad times. So you only need to sell in the good times or in the seller's market.
Yeah.
And so you
still have to buy in the seller's market too. So
100%.
that's where people need to understand as well. Like, it's that's why I don't stress about the buyer's market, seller's market. You got to buy in a buyer's market. You got to sell in the market. Like you have to, like you got somewhere, you got to live somewhere.
So I mean, is that a game worth playing, or is it are you kind of, if you're in the position to, would it be better off to kind of try and accumulate a couple of properties, one that you live in, one maybe that you are renting out with the equity, and trying to better your equity ratio, and so that you can get a second property, so that if you sell one, you can then just go and live in the other one, rather than having to continue to buy? Like, is there much in, like, obviously if you're in the case where you have to sell and buy in the same market, that you have to do it.
Yeah.
But, would you advise, or would you kind of think about doing it so you've got multiple properties at the same time, rather than needing to buy in the same market?
I think you're better to have as many as you can and just have a bit of mortgage on all of them, because you can. The way with New Zealand that the way that debt works is you don't charge tax on debt. So if you go and get a property and you pay that mortgage all the way down to 10 grand, and that property is worth 500-600 grand, you can go pull 80% of that out, and then that's all tax free, and you can put that into the next investment. So the idea is you never pay them off until you're ready to pay them off. Do you know, and you're ready to sit there. You might have 8 or 9. Like, this is long term, guys. Like, like, this is how I've always invested, and that's probably should have been stipulated at the start. I am a long term investor, and I'm someone would say a boring investor, because it's like I can look like I'm doing nothing, but I'm still sticking to my game plan for like 3 or 4 years, because it's all a part of the plan. It's like, it's long game over everything. You brought up a good point about being like having a sort of like a fail safe sort of bit
margin of error.
Yeah, margin of error. Like I had a saying I used to say to all my clients is like, if you're buying at your max leverage, be ready for peanut butter and toast. That's what I would say. And then what do you mean by that? Don't sell at a negative. Like, do not sell. Like, you only lose money when you sell. So what people tend to do is they tend to lose their deposit. So the bank gets their money back. Like, the bank will always put pressure on you, go, oh yeah, and then interest rates come up and stuff like that. It becomes that. You can live off, I know you don't want to or have to, but you can live off peanut butter and toast. Like, what's that? It's not very good advice, but like, what's that? Like $20 a week per person? Like, you could, like, you're not going to feel good. You're not going to like, you could do that for a long, do you know what I mean? Like, get creative, grow your veggies at home. Yeah. Like, go big borrow and steal, like, not steal, but like big borrow off of like family members that have heaps of eggs or something like that,
I guess that just ends up being that'll be the default if you overcommit to what you can actually afford. If you're put in that position, then you would be better off to try and leverage what your current living scenario is versus selling at a loss and then losing money on a property. Whereas you'll only ever lose, I guess from what you're saying, you'll only ever lose if you actually sell in the first place. And so if there are things that, like, if you've overcommitted to the debt that you've taken on to get into the property market, and cool, now you've done that, now you've accepted that, well, there's still something I guess that you can do is manage your current lifestyle. What within your current lifestyle can you manage so that you don't have to sell, or that you can sell in a better time?
Yeah, 100%. Like you can move out of your own house. Rent hasn't gone down, bro. Like rent has consistently been going up in New Zealand. It's actually quite bad. You know, like, and everyone were like, "Oh, what the hell?" But you're the one who rents it out to people. Like, I was like, "Yeah," but I also, because my interest rates go up. That's the same thing that I say. Like, everything is compounding, and it gets passed on. Like, you know, I own this house not to pay for your well-being. You know, like it's you know, like I kind of have to add that. And most, like, I've had my properties where I've pulled money out of my pocket to keep afloat as well during tough times. You know, like, you can move out of your house and you could rent that out, you know, like, and you could just go to something that's within your means. Because I would say a lot of people are living beyond their means as well, as what 100%. And they all buy on emotion, and they sell on emotion. Like, you
not
need
just fucking houses either, like everything.
I would do as best as I could to try and coach people to, like, stay calm. Like, when you hear all the noise, like, I kind of taught myself, it's like the reverse of everything. So if I hear things are bad, that's when I start telling people, like, actually, now's the best time to go buy. Like, I don't know if you remember, I told maybe yourself and a few of our mates, like, that didn't have properties, like 12 months ago. Like, Callum actually ended up pulling the trigger on one of them. So I
remember,
yeah, and now he's like in the green, like, happy as, and now things are starting to come back, and then he's just like, oh, because I actually was telling him, like, put offers out there, like, come on, like, go do as best you can, like, just put offers out there. And then he finally got in there. Now he's happy as, you know, he's got a room for his daughter and stuff, and now the value's already gone up, and, like, he's having, because, like, this is what happens with first home buyers. They'll check, like, the websites that do the values, and it's like, oh, I've gone up like 10 grand or 20 grand, and I was just like, bro, you wait, brother. Like, awesome. I'm glad, because I can see it's clicking for them, that bug, and they're like, oh shit, nothing's really changed. I went from paying rent to someone to paying my mortgage, and now I can actually see a tangible asset, like my own thing, grow a little bit. Like, it's not huge, but over the years he'll see it, and then, like, and everyone does see it.
I was actually going to say, and, like, I wonder whether or not that's part of why it's so big in New Zealand, because we don't really have, when, like, investing in stocks and things like that is definitely on the rise, and I think more people are doing it now, especially since COVID, where it kind of became like the thing to do if you're basically 25 and older.
Yeah.
But it's still, you know, to see that return, it's really, like, property seems to be, it's one of the only places that is incentivized to do that in New Zealand. It's like, I was wondering, like, why is property so popular? Like, you know, if you pretty much over the age of maybe, like, I don't know, 25 or 30, everything's like, buy a house, buy a house, buy a house, buy a house.
It's only been like this the last 10, 15 years, bro.
Yeah,
like,
that's what I wondered.
It's social media. Like, and that's, I feel like, so when I done my papers for real estate, they stipulate, like, only we can give them property advice, you know, and that's why I would say none of this is financial advice, guys.
Yeah,
you know, like, then that's, like, only they can give you the, like, all right, what's happened in that house, or what the values are. This is that's comparable values and stuff like. I can give you my opinion and stuff like, and things like that.
Yeah, of course.
I am experienced as a property investor, so I can give you my advice as a property investor. But realistically, it's like, it's only them that can give you the advice, and, like, there's just too much stuff going on right now. I think newspapers should be banned from reporting. They shouldn't be able to put those fearful headlines in place. They should be like, property market update.
This sold for this.
Of this. Yeah. And then you derive the data, you make your own decision, and said, because, I don't know, we don't want to get the tinfoil hat out now, you know, like, they're all a part of the machine, that fucking, the banks, and they're all in cahoots, and they want to drive prices in directions. Like, they have incentive to do that, like, and it is what the Reserve Bank is trying to do. We're trying to curb inflation. That's them manipulating the market to try and level out, to slow us from buying. Like, all of these things, they all work together. But, you know, it's only become apparent, and now it's available to the masses, whereas before only the financial sector and real estate sector was quite a niche little market, and now it's sort of, and that's where the problem is as well, because all of those people now that are well versed could, sort of screw over the people that aren't well versed, and that's the same with stocks. That's why crypto has created the most debt and heaps of billionaires like that haven't even earned it or anything like that, because the way that the crypto is working, it's stealing your money. Like it's they all build it up together, but then whoever's a big whale holder, they can just rug pull it, or whoever put that thing on the exchange just goes, whoop, thanks for all your money. I'll have some crypto people come after me like, oh, you don't know. I was like, I don't know, and like I'm only investing in what I know about. Maybe I'll do a bit more research. I'm thinking about buying some Bitcoin, but like that's just quietly. Like for me, I'm not going to be like, oh, because that's the thing. It's all about like getting everyone to go with you, so then your value comes up. But yeah, you only same thing as well. You only make money when you sell.
Yeah,
if you're in up, but you only lose money if you're down. But with crypto, you can just go and you got zero. It can flatline. Whereas in real estate, like I think that's what wars were fought about, like to literally uphold like land titles, like a long time ago, like historically, and that people try to go, oh, your land title means nothing to me, and then like they'll go and get their neighboring property, and then they'll go to war because people stood up for their rights and their right of their land that they've claimed, and they've gone through the process to own and stuff. So shouldn't be able to, but the way that the world is and the whole 20-minute cities and stuff like that, they're trying to move away from us owning property as well. So like that's why I also think the way to curb against those sort of attacks are to try and own as much as you can, and not, because they're trying to make you go, oh, renting's like, they're trying to, maybe you're having those thoughts like, oh, maybe is it worth it for me? Or should I go and rent? Like maybe it's a bit easier, it's a bit harder. It's like, well, if you rent, then you have no negotiation. Like as soon as some law changes, you've got nothing to play with. Do you get what I mean? Like if you can't, they can't. They'll just be like, oh, you're out. Like, oh, you need to move into our little block that we built for you. Whereas like, no, I own my house. Like I'm good, bro. Like you put your people in your block, I'm good in my 3 or 4 houses over here. Yeah. And I'll put and then you're trying to put all my mates and stuff like that. Oh, I've got 3 or 4 of them, and I'll put them in my houses. Do you know what I mean? Like, yeah.
I'm pretty impartial to most of the news and I guess the noise around the area, because I just don't follow pretty much anyone that's talking about or read newspapers about investment or anything. Like, I'm almost too naive to the fact that I have no idea what's going on. Yeah. Which kind of works in my favor because I don't get pulled in by any kind of vacuum into some bullshit. That's there. Yeah. More, I guess it's kind of like when I look at it, I'm like, if it ever gets to that kind of you have to move here, you have to move here, I'm kind of like, I wonder whether or not we're actually all just in the same position at the end of the day. Like, if they want to move us, they're going to move us. Yeah. So if shit hits the fan, I'm like, whether we own or whatever, it's kind of like, we're going to end up somewhere. Yeah. And so I'm like, I don't have a clue. And it's more at the moment.
The reason, sorry to interrupt. The reason for that, you think that we're all going to, but because people have something to lose, that means that the more that all of us have something to lose, the more we will all stand up and fight against it. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah,
for that inclination.
Yeah. Whereas I guess
whereas if you were the way that I see it, like that mindset for you, like that it's weaseled you down into that thinking mindset, so that as much people can be in that situation. So then there's, it's not that much of a change. But if there's more people thinking in my mindset, it's more of a disruption for them, because we'll be like, no, we're not leaving. Do you get what I mean? Yeah, whereas if there's more people thinking like that, then it's just a smooth transition for them, and they love power. They will absolutely do it. The more people think like that.
100% makes sense.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, actually, I wasn't too sure where I was going with it. But like, I think the main thing, like a lot of it, I end up being, like I said, relatively impartial to most of it. Yeah. Purely because I'm just completely naive to it, and so a lot of the question is really just around, okay, what does, I guess, the market look like currently? Yeah. And that's kind of where I wanted to steer the conversation, is just like, what is that current, what does that market look like currently? And what are our options when we're there? And we kind of hear these things, and everyone kind of, I feel like everyone talks about certain things without really understanding what they're actually talking about. Yeah. Like we talked about the whole buyer's market versus seller's market, and they'll kind of be like, oh yeah, well now I'm in a good position because it's the seller's market, blah blah blah. Bro, do you even know what you're talking about?
Oh, there's just talkers, man, in real estate, like, and just like it's because they get the reassurance. Sorry to interrupt you. They get the reassurance from just saying I'm going to buy a house.
Yeah, 100%.
I've had 6 of my mates that are telling me they're going to buy a house,
Yeah.
and I think one of them executed recently.
And that's what I mean.
That's 10 years later, bro.
That's what I mean. It's actually more, I think, just the, it's because it's become in vogue. It's the popular thing to do. Everyone's like buying houses. And again, I don't know whether that's just purely because we're old now, bro. I don't know if it's that or if it's just like the times have changed and there is kind of like a limited resource in terms of land and property. And so more people at a younger age have to try and get into it.
Yeah.
Or maybe we're just at the age where that's what we need to think about. And so it's like, it just seems like there's a lot more noise going on.
It's definitely to relay back up your thing. It's actually, you're right though. Like the stats have come and like New Zealanders and Australia and like other nations, like more modern nations, have tried to start buying houses earlier because of that fear of missing out, that that FOMO. It is apparent, and people we can see the trends despite what the media is telling us, and because they keep on going like record high like incomes and record high like low employment rate or something like that. Like it's like, no, I am feeling it. I am struggling, and we're trying to better our own situations, and that's why it's sort of bad that like our savings aren't staying savings. Like we're living in a world where they're stealing our money out of our pockets. Like, and you can't get ahead because it's hard, because your savings aren't worth much and your income can't go up with it. And like that's one way to hedge against those sort of things, and that's why I'm bullish on real estate. Like for me, it's hard too, because I agree. Like in New Zealand as well, it's stocks are not
as popular.
They're not as popular, but it's also like I'm invested in stocks, but I don't have heaps in there, and I actually do make some dividends, and I see it is working for me. Like, and I'm putting in 5,000 a year, and it works. Like, and I don't know what it says, like 20 something, but I've only put in 15, so it's already gone up like more than one of my first deposits. So like it is working, and that does work. And like, but I would say I know more about property, so that's why I am more heavier on property. And New Zealanders seem to be getting a bit more clued around property now, because there's not many people getting badly done by and stuff like that, where they used to be really bad in the past. Like quite a lot of people had, like when I went into real estate, my dad used to be like, oh, get a fucking real job, you're just a dirty salesman, and I was like, even though he knew why I got into it, I was like, well, I own a house and you don't. Like I got into it to help other people like me that want to get ahead in life. I don't want to ever have to rely on the government for my retirement, is the way I think of it. No, and whereas if like people go, oh, like if I could, I would drain my KiwiSaver. I would never have to put into that, because I don't want to ever rely on them. When what's that, 40 years away from retirement, like they'll probably put it up 5, 6, 7 years as well by the time I get there, and then there'll be like a little shoebox for me to go in if I expect them to look after me.
Yes, it's taking ownership, eh?
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it, like having that accountability,
I mean, is there anything else that you wanted to kind of talk about that we haven't touched on today, or is there a place that if people have questions and they're interested in either getting into property or looking to develop properties, is there somewhere where they can obviously touch base with you?
If you're
or anyone,
yeah,
like
if you got some questions and stuff like just follow me on Instagram, or follow me on, I think I'm probably going to be using more for content my Aaron Won't Stop Instagram. Just going to do is it
Aaron.won't.stop?
Yeah.
There you go.
Yes, yeah. So that's my Instagram there. Happy to help when it comes to development questions, real estate, building. Like that's what I love. That's my wheelhouse. That's what I'm quite knowledgeable on, and I'll give you my time for free. I do not care. Like I've stipulated it to a lot of my friends, and sadly only a couple of them have taken me up on it, even though I have a plethora of knowledge for them. I've had more of my previous clients from real estate come to me for advice, which I really appreciate, and I end up helping them out. But I would love to help someone save 20, 30 grand if I can give you the right advice at the right time.
Yeah.
You know, like I would love to do that because, you know, like when I went through my journey, I had no one giving me any help, and I had to figure it all out myself at a young age. And I thought, fuck me, there's no such thing as a professional in this world, because like no one knows the answers, or no one's willing to give you the answers. My sort of approach to knowledge is, I can give you the knowledge, it's up to you to act upon it. Like, you know, I can tell you how to go and develop a thing, property. I can tell you how to go subdivide. I can tell you these are the contractors you got to go get. These are the things you got to line up. You got to deal with the council for this, engineering plans, blah, blah, blah. You still have to go and do it. So like me holding my cards close to my chest doesn't help anyone. And like, I think there's enough money to go around. There's enough real estate. There's enough business for everyone. You know, I'm happy to help. Yeah.
Good place to leave. Cheers for listening.
Cheers, guys. Bye.